Okay, class, so for this next part of the poster, what we want to do is populate the surrounding areas of the skull with those decorative elements that we've previously created. And then for the bottom part of the poster, I'm going to create my typographic elements. So I'm going to be using the time, date, and place as well as the title of the event. So what I did was I basically took this part of the eye and took it off to the side and simplified it just a little bit, just because I want to create a focal point in the middle, which is pretty much the skull, and I don't want the supplemental elements and decorative elements to kind of be too overbearing on my layout. So I want to make sure that the most detail I see is here in the skull, and the rest will be a little bit more simple. So I pretty much took this shape right here. I'll show you how I did this. Let's zoom in. Actually, I'm going to go in here and just show you what I did. I pretty much took this shape, so made it into a copy. I went into Control, hit down Control, release Compound Path, and pretty much made it a little bit smaller. And then what I did was I selected the other part of my floral shape right here. So I can just copy and paste. And I pretty much deleted the elements that I don't need, which is the outline and more decorative elements off to the side. Okay. Make sure I still have those in here. And I just made everything black. Alright. So you pretty much get the idea of how we're taking certain elements from the same shape right here without having to recreate everything from scratch, which is why we're doing this process. So in here, I'm doing this, making it a little smaller, and we have our basic shape. And this guy right here, you pretty much select and bring them on to here. But the main starting point was pretty much selecting this whole floral of the eye. Okay, so now that we have our elements set, what we'll do is start arranging them on the poster. So here's what we'll do. We'll start here and we'll decrease the size a little bit. So I'm pretty much going off of a symmetrical balanced layout. I'm going to put this in all four corners like so. And as you can see, I'm trying to align this to the center like that. I want to make sure the same thing happens with this particular shape. So, alright. So now, I'm just pretty much duplicating as I go. Select both, duplicate to the other side. I want to make sure that we're still centered. Okay. Right here. And then select other areas I would like to place into my layout. Okay. So I almost have the shapes in place. I might want to take some areas here, like this guy, and make them a little bit smaller. Actually, I might want to take this guy instead. Drag him over. We'll see what works better. I think I might like the other one more. Yeah, the black seems to work better. And I think I'm going to stick with this one right here, just for consistency throughout the whole piece. Like so. Okay. Duplicate that and move that up. Now notice those are still not centered properly, so I'll bring those down a tad bit, like that. And then I'm going to select this guy right here and see how he'll fit in. So put him right on top, like that. Now, the second part of this is I want to create my type layout underneath. So I have this area all set for me, and I want to write out the name of the event, so I'll call it like this. And I particularly like this font, and the reason why is because my layout is very much rounded corners all over and circles, so it's not a very sharp illustration. It's pretty much flat with a lot of curves. So I wanted to maintain that consistency with the font selection that I will use. And you can go into thefont.com, or you can go into Google Fonts and you can download whichever kind of font you wish. But I would say look at what your illustration aesthetic is, and if it's a little bit more on the rounder side, try to see if there are elements of the typeface that you pick out that have those similar characteristics. And we want to make sure that we have that consistency, because typography and illustration together need to work perfectly. Okay, so I'm actually going to do a asymmetrical layout with my type, and just take a look and see what I can do. So I'm trying to align those two together and stack them, like so. Make them a little bit smaller. And I'm noticing that there's a little bit too much space between my letter forms, so I'm going to bring up my character palette and decrease the spacing like so, and then make this bigger. So shift and drag, and make sure you hold down shift so that you don't have any of this distortion happening. Okay. So I have the name, then I want the date and the place, time and place. So I'm going to do some interesting layouts with my type. So I'm going to say October. I'm going to set this off to the side, and then I'm going to type the date. And then I want to copy that and then type the 25th. So I create some interesting layouts with my type. So as you can see, if I go Command R, I'll have my rulers out. I want to make sure things align properly. That way we have a good sense of geometry with our typography. And we will add those guides, the top and bottom of our words. And I'm going to enlarge this type like that. I'm going to take this word and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So I want to make sure that I do something like this. Now you don't have to do this. I am just kind of being a little bit experimental with my typography, just because I'm having some thoughts about this being a very symmetrical layout, and I want my type to be asymmetrical just for a little bit more visual balance and interest. So I'll do that. Select the eyedropper tool, click so that the size stays consistent. Okay. Move this over a bit. So now I have my date. Now I want to put in my time. So I'm going to move this guy down, and then I'm going to say, too big, but I will size it down. And say 10 a.m. So I don't want caps. Till 5 p.m. And I don't want this to be in all caps, so I will make this lowercase and make this much smaller, like so. Just kind of create some kind of a barrier between the date and the time so that it stands out. And then do the same for the next date. I'm going to start this at 12. Okay. And now we're going to select everything and make it all much smaller. Like so. This guy a little bit down. Like so. And so I'm starting to see what my type layout is looking like. And just to create a little bit more visual interest, I will make this a black background and the rest of the type in white. And then bring this to the front. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more and make some changes to my type. So I probably want the type here to be on a white background, so I will bring this to the front, bring this bar to the back, which it is, and then select the type and make it black. So that way I have some kind of a highlighted element to balance out the scale with everything else. Because time is also important, but we also want to make sure it's readable. Alright. Just spaced out the letter forms in here and the numbers. I'm going to do the same with this guy over here, so I'm pretty much going to do edit, copy, and paste. And make sure this guy is out of the way, so select, option, and drag while holding down the shift key. And we'll change this to So now, pretty much have our time, date, name of the event. Now we want to take a look at location. So, not sure what's going on with this year. What we're probably going to be celebrating online, maybe, or with family, or whatever the current situation is. So we'll make this a online event. So we'll do into Twitch. And I realize that I am very much off with my spacing, so I will decrease that. I'm going to go into auto and make this white. Bring this down, like so. Tiny bit smaller. And we're pretty much done. I'm just going to maybe bring in maybe an element from here. So maybe this guy in here, or this guy in here. copy, paste, turn this into white using the eyedropper tool. And then I'm just going to come a little bit bigger, like so. So now we have our time, date, and place until the event on our poster. So this is pretty much the final outcome for the poster. Now what's left is that we need to add some color in here. So I'll see you in the next video for how to create a specific color palette for your illustration, and also how you can quickly color this in.